Alrighty folks, here I am in the backyard studio, about to record another episode of the podcast. I'll give you a little look at the backyard here. It's don't have very many days left back here as it's starting to get cold, but here we go. That chair's for Bree when she's in timeout. As you can see, need to get the yard mowed this weekend, and here's a little bit of the equipment nado, but here we go. I'm just going to riff a bit today because I don't really have a whole lot to talk about, but figured might as well put something out. I got my coffee here. We got Cafe Patachu today. This is their coconut cream with a little bit of half and half. Alrighty, so not sure if we got anything interesting on the Twitter sphere this week. Haven't been paying that much attention. But all you got to really do is open up Twitter, hit explore, or see what's going on, and usually there's just some batshit crazy things happening every day, and it seems like there's something new every day. But not anything I really feel the need to talk about. Other than there's a lot of talk about Trump getting impeached this week. I think we know by now that that's just not going to happen. As much as many people want it to happen, and it seems as though what he did sounds pretty impeachable, but we know from past experience that it's just probably not going to happen. So various people are going to cover things up and shut their mouth, and it's just going to be a big, oh, he might get impeached, and then just kind of a big letdown. Would I like that to happen? Part of me says yes, but then part of me is like, oh, we're left with Mike Pence, who isn't too hot either. But either way, this upcoming election, I'm a Yang gang all way. Not only because I think he has some of the smartest policies, but I also think he just seems like one of the most authentic politicians out there. And funny enough, I actually talked to some buddies last week, more on the conservative side, and they actually think like the whole universal basic income is a really good idea. And if you're really like very pro-capitalist, that like it's a very good policy. I'm not going to go into explaining that just because it would take a while to, but if you just search Andrew Yang on anything, YouTube, and like actually want to listen to like in depth of what the policy is and what his policies are, like you get to know a lot more about what that entails. And it's like if we just want to rise the lowest tides as far as economics is concerned, it seems as though universal basic income and what he's proposing seems like a fairly good idea. But anyways, I'll move on from that. So I put a post out on Facebook earlier this week that seemed to get some people flabbergasted, and that was, let me go back. I put, what is strength outside of a weight room measure? I said I've been pondering this lately and I can't really come up with anything that's concrete. Is strength just the best manipulation of physics? And I had a couple conversations on here, and I think some people were kind of missing the point I was trying to get at. So let me explain a little bit further. What I mean by how I think strength is just a weight room measurement is because what does it mean, like what does strength really mean outside of the weight room? And I'm not talking about the like just day-to-day life. You're like when you're thinking, oh, that person looks like a strong guy, or that if that person's playing a sport, that person is strong in their sport, or this person is mentally strong. I'm talking specifically about kind of what it means to be strong in the weight room and how that carries itself outside of the weight room. And it's hard to like kind of pinpoint the connection there. So for example, I'm a pretty strong person. I best squat is 505, best bench is 320 now, best deadlift 572 now. Just hit a PR yesterday. But I am so specifically strong in those three things, and in the weight room, I'm not sure how it correlates to pretty much anything else other than being strong at back squat, bench press, and deadlift. For instance, and was an example I used because wrestling is an easy example to bring up because you think of wrestlers being just so physically strong on the mat. I'm willing to bet a lot of wrestlers in the country cannot hit those weight room numbers that I have hit. But if I get on the mat and try to wrestle with those people, I'm gonna get thrown around like a rag doll. And I might be able to put up a better fight because I have those weight room numbers, but it's just not gonna do me any good if I don't have the specific skills in wrestling. So when I also say, is strength just the best manipulation of physics, what I mean by that is when someone is trying to get really strong at back squat, bench press, and deadlift. This is just the easiest example because like powerlifting, when you think of the strongest people, you think of powerlifting because they're lifting essentially the most numbers on the bar and your typical big lifts. So when someone's trying to get strong at the back squat, bench press, and deadlift, they are manipulating their body in a way to lift those numbers. So what I mean by that is to lift more weight on a bench press, what can you right away do that's going to help you do that? One, you can limit the range of motion by getting a super big arch, pulling your chest up nice and high, and then widening your grip out. And powerlifting, there's a legally wide grip you can have, and if you go wider outside index finger on the ring, that's illegal grip. So there is some like standards there, but that's an easy way to manipulate physics to help you get a bigger bench press. And a back squat, for instance, what can I do to right away help me lift more weight on the bar? Well, I can get a super big I can put the bar lower on my back so it's closer to my hips, and it makes it decreases essentially it makes it easier for my hips to finish the lift and lock out. So I can get a super big arch, put the bar lower on my back, that puts the bar even closer to my hips. So essentially I'm not moving the bar again through as big of a range of motion as I could if I put it higher on my back and try to stay taller. Because if I arch, I'm actually kind of shrinking myself and widening myself backwards to put the bar closer to my hips to make it easier to finish the lift. Now if I tried to squat my best squat would immediately go down right now if I put the bar higher on my back and tried to keep my ribs down and keep like a longer spine. It's just going to be it's going to be way harder for me to lift that weight. So that's what I mean by is that I'm just manipulating physics in a way to get more numbers on the bar. So again, it's hard to say how strength is just measurements in the weight room, and how does that specifically relate to anything else? And I still don't know. I obviously think it's useful to get stronger in the weight room because I'm a strength and conditioning coach, but I still I'm not sure what strength is outside of measuring stuff in the weight room to see you've improved. And if you want to respond to that, I'm open to the conversation. And it's I feel like some of it, people think it might be a hit on their ego. It's like, oh, you only lift big numbers in the weight room. And that's really all it is. Just because you back squat, bench press, and deadlift a lot of weight, what that does for you outside of it, who knows? I don't think it does much. Outside of powerlifting, I don't think having a big back squat, bench press, and deadlift in the way that the strategy powerlifters take to lift more weight does you pretty much any good outside of powerlifting. Yeah, so don't let that have a hit on your ego, I guess I should end it with. But yeah, if you want to respond to that, please do. Anyways, I put some questions out, or I put a post up on Instagram asking if people wanted to, saying that I was going to be recording this weekend, and if people wanted to ask me any questions. So I'm going to go back and see what some of those questions were. Not a whole lot of people responded, but some people did. So let me go back here and look. Come on. All right, let's go down to the first one. Maybe. Why do they not show up on the computer? Okay, come on. Thought I just saw one. Man, come on. You know what? I'm gonna look them up on my phone, and then I'm going to write them down on my computer, and then I'll respond. So be right back. All right, here we go. I'm back. I think I got my recording thing figured out too. All right, so just a few questions and topics here that people posted. Not a whole lot of responses, but that's all right. We'll rock on. First one is just Kyle's split skis. So most people probably don't know what this means at all, but at the wedding, one of my buddies, Kyle, who was in the wedding, a groomsman, he had I feel like the funnest weekend of his life that weekend. But at the wedding, so this is a taller individual, probably about 6'1" is my guess. Not the most athletic individual, but during the reception, decided to do the splits out of nowhere. And he's more legs than he is anything else, like really long legs. And like I said, not the most athletic human being there is. But yeah, on the dance floor, just all of a sudden decided to whip out the split. So he's dancing, and boom, front leg, one leg forward, one leg back, crotch all the way to the floor. I'm very surprised he didn't rip his pants. Maybe he did. I can't remember, quite frankly. And he not only did this once and felt the ramifications of doing it the first time, as in it hurting very bad, but under the encouragement of alcohol, decided to do it, I think, at least 1 or 2 more times. It was hilarious, absolutely hilarious, seeing somebody that has no business doing the splits do the splits only because they had enough to drink and they were like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And seeing somebody that it just looked so painful to do the splits. Like I said, no business doing the splits, but just broke it out of nowhere on the dance floor, and everybody was like, holy shit, what did he just do? Talked to him the next day, asked him, hey Kyle, how you feeling? Not too bad, other than I feel like I tore my hamstring. So I guess that's what you get if you do the splits while being drunk and not having the prerequisite athletic ability to do the splits in the first place. So there's that. Next question is, why is it important to live with an open mind? I guess my answer to this would be, it's not important unless you want it to be important. So there's nothing about being alive that just right away makes it important to have an open mind. It all depends on really what you want to get out of your experience here. What are your goals? I would say living with a closed mind is one sure way to have a more dull experience here, and is a sure way to keep you from reaching your goals, whatever your goals may be. So having an open mind is good for really interacting with other human beings, because if you have and we all know those people we come across that have closed minds about anything, and it's just people we don't want to talk to. So having more of an open mind about anything is going to open you up to having better conversations with people, better experiences, just because you're more open essentially to experience. Because we all know those people with closed minds that it's just a struggle to be around those type of people, and we just don't want to spend time with those type of people because it almost seems as if they're in a shitty mood all the time, or there's just something that's always eating at them. So I guess to finish that question off is, it's not really important. Nothing about the nature of reality says it's important to live with an open mind. It just depends on what you're trying to get out of your experience. And I would say having an open mind is going to open you up to way better experiences, as simple as that sounds. So there's my take on that. Next question, this is a big one. We honestly might need a roundtable discussion for this. Top 5 rappers of all time. Oh man, I feel like I have to give a solid reason as to why all of these, but again, I don't want to sit here for an hour talking about rappers. So this honestly might be a podcast in itself, getting multiple buddies in to talk about the top 5 rappers of all time. This conversation has been brought up so many times with so many different people, and it gets heated. Like, it gets really, really heated. So I'm gonna go with the top 5 of what I said a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And this is just, I feel like I have to stick with these. And I honestly probably don't listen to these people much. I think for sure, if you're talking about the best 5 rappers of all time, you can't list anybody within the past 5 years, except maybe J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. But some of these new rappers coming out with stuff is like, some of the songs are catchy, but as far as like actual rapping goes, is just awful. Like, the lyrics are so bad that they have to make it catchy because it sort of saves the song. That's just my humble opinion. But here we go, top 5 rappers of all time. Okay, number 1, I have to go with Nas. I have to go with Nas at number 1. I honestly have not listened, I don't listen to Nas all the time, because when I do listen to music, it's in the car or to get ready to train. And like, listening to very lyrical rap just doesn't get me going. But when you listen to Nas, like, the lyrics, the flow are just absolutely insane. And all you have to do is, if you really want to get a glimpse of it, go to YouTube, just type in like top 5 Nas verses or songs of all time, and just like pull up the lyrics too and read the lyrics while the song's going on. He has some insane lyrics. And I remember I got into Nas in high school because he had the song Ether, where he just rips Jay-Z the entire song, and I was like, holy shit, he goes off. Who is Nas? This is fantastic though. So Nas will have to be number 1. Number 2, I think I'm gonna have to go with, and this, I feel like these are kind of mainstream opinions, but that's just my experience within rap. So if you want to debate these, feel free. Next, I'd have to go with Biggie before Tupac. Just because Biggie has a flow that, like, it's just easy. It's a lot easier to vibe with the Biggie rapping flow than it is Tupac. Tupac's more like in your face, hardcore gangsta, and I like that, some of it, but Biggie is just kind of more, there's more of a flow to it that just kind of like, you can just kind of vibe with it a little bit more, where Tupac, it seems like every hard Tupac song is just so in your face. So number 2 would have to be Biggie. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Tupac, just because he's kind of just, you almost have to even if you don't like Tupac, you almost have to throw him in to your top 5 just because of the kind of the legendary status he has on the rap game. And it might honestly just be because he died early. Same thing with Biggie. Maybe if they both of them live longer, they wouldn't be as iconic as they are in the rap field. But it is what it is. They died early, and I think that kind of gave them a legendary status, an iconic effect on the rap industry. And some Tupac songs, like I said, they're in your face, but some just like absolutely get you going. Absolutely get you going. That leaves the last 2 are usually the hardest. And these ones are going to be tough for me. I definitely have to put Jay-Z probably at number 4. And I already know people are going to hate this answer. Absolutely hate this answer. But I don't care. I've actually read Jay-Z's book sophomore year of college. It was like the first book I read outside of school on my own. And it was a good book, and he talks about the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics that went into each song, and like what was going on behind the scenes during that time of his life making these songs. And again, Jay-Z kind of, there's a certain flow to it, and lyricism that just blend well together, that you're just like, if you can just start listening to the lyrics a little bit, you just kind of start vibing real hard. What would be my favorite Jay-Z song? And Jay-Z, like, he's still doing like verses every now and then. They're not his best, but all of a sudden Jay-Z will come on a remix of like a newer song these days, and it's just like, oh, okay, it's a breath of fresh air, because you're like, this is what rap kind of used to be like. This is like, it's not his best, but it's still good, and it kind of just gives you a breath of fresh air of, whew, we still have some of this around, because some of the new stuff is just garbage. And that brings me to my last one. Ah, man. I don't want to say this, but I feel like, and these are probably such mainstream opinions, I think I'm going to have to go 5, Eminem. And I don't even like Eminem that much, but I feel like I have to give him his credit, because so many people out there think he's a phenomenon. Like, so many people love him and loved him back in his prime. He has a pretty wide fan base. And there's some of his old songs that just absolutely go hard. I kind of throw these couple songs on every now and then if I'm trying to get a little bit more pumped up, but I can't remember the names off the top of my head. Square Dance. I remember we went to karaoke one night, and some dude rapped Square Dance, like, without even looking at the screen. I was like, oh shit, like, this song goes hard. What's the name of this song? And then next week I think I listened to it every day. But anyways, I think those are my top 5. The one that is for sure concrete is Nas. Like, I think, in my opinion, he's got to be number 1. He's just phenomenal. I feel like I had a message here that somebody replied to about top 5, like who has to be in your top 5. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know. Right, Instagram on the internet is just not nearly as good. Yeah, I can't find it, but I think they said something along the lines like Tupac has to be in your top 5. But anyways, we'll move on to the last question. The last question is strongest man to ever live. Honestly, I don't follow much of the history of strength sports as much as maybe I should. So I couldn't tell you like who the strongest man was in powerlifting back in the day, or who the best Olympic weightlifter was back in the day. And again, this is just kind of subjective opinion. And like I said, I don't know the history of some of these sports maybe as much as I should. So what I will do is I won't tell you the strongest man to ever live, because it's probably going to be so far from accurate. But I'll tell you who I think. I'll just tell you some of my favorite powerlifters and Olympic lifters now. For powerlifting, it's so one of the best, some of the best, and again, this is just going to be straight like drug tested USAPL because that's all I pay attention to. But like Russell Orhe, 83 kilo lifter, is pretty insane right now. I think he squatted 700 or slightly above at Worlds a few months ago. Benches well over 400, deadlifts hair over 700 as well. And again, at 83 kilos, if you don't know how many pounds that is, that's 180, I want to say 183 pounds, 184, 182 maybe. Yeah, just insane numbers. And again, drug free, because USAPL, you get drug tested, especially if you win. Another strong lifter in that category is Sean Noriega. Again, 83 kilo lifter, puts up around the same. Bench press is just insane, like 460, I think, maybe higher. And again, he has a super big arch, and people are gonna bitch about that, but hey, whatever works in competition, right? And then yeah, well over 600 on squat, a hair over 700 on deadlift, I think. Again, crazy numbers. And then, so like, honestly, in powerlifting, the females impress me more than anything. Like, I honestly like watching the females more than the men, just because I think it's just a cultural thing where we're not used to women being super strong. So seeing some of these, especially super tiny women, just lifting crazy numbers, just like, it gets me all jacked up and ready to go train and get after it. But Megan Scanlon is a super strong, I think 63 kilo lifter, puts up, again, I can't tell you the numbers right off my head, but insane numbers. And she just started doing Olympic weightlifting too, and it's kind of cool to see somebody who's started powerlifting, got super strong in powerlifting, and see how that kind of transfers over into Olympic weightlifting. I think it seems as if having a good foundation of strength in the power lifts sets you up for some general things in weightlifting where you don't have to, like, you're not starting completely from scratch. And then females as well. Jennifer Thompson is a kind of a legend within the female powerlifting world. 63 kilo lifter, I believe. I know she's not competing at nationals. She competed at the Arnold last year and jacked up her hip or leg, but has benched 300 or more. I think it's 20 or more times in competition, which is insane for a woman that weighs 63 kilos, which is, again, I think 134 pounds. So yeah, again, crazy. Also, there's a powerlifter, David Ricks, I believe is his name, and this dude still competes on the national stage, is still in the primetime session at this next nationals in 2 weeks, and I want to say he's mid-50s, and he's putting up numbers that would blow your mind for a 50-some-year-old. Way over 600 on squat, over 400 on bench, and way over 600, maybe 700 on deadlift. But it's just like, if that doesn't motivate, if you're a powerlifter and that doesn't motivate you, man, maybe got in the wrong business. So that's kind of where my head goes on powerlifting. Olympic weightlifting, I admit, being more involved in powerlifting now, I haven't paid as much attention, and I don't know if I have a favorite lifter in regards to Olympic weightlifting. I still follow a decent amount online. I think the whole, like, Catherine Nye coming out of nowhere to, I guess maybe it isn't out of nowhere, but all of a sudden kind of like stealing the spotlight from Maddie Rogers. It's pretty cool to see, not that she's stealing the spotlight from Maddie Rogers, but because she's kind of came out of nowhere and is just like putting up some insane numbers. Who else? I used to be a lot more into Olympic weightlifting as far as the actual specific lifters, not nearly as much anymore. And what there's some, and seeing some of the like females from other countries, and again I think there's might be some steroid use involved, but I think like everyone's favorite female lifter outside of the U.S. is Laura Dana Toma, who just puts up some insane numbers, and she's straight shredded and jacked. But yeah, I'll go with that. That doesn't really answer the question, but there we are. Those are the questions. Just a little bit of riff-raff this week, but I enjoyed it. Hope you did. Hope you have a good rest of the Saturday. Get out there, watch some football. I'm going to probably mow the yard after this, but until next time, folks, bye-bye.